The sun, a dying ember, bled crimson across the Serengeti, painting the acacia trees in stark silhouettes. Ranger Juma Kasumba, mid-40s, his weathered face a roadmap of sun and hard-won experience, stood frozen, the rhythmic crunch of his heavy work boots suddenly silent on the dusty earth. His sharp, observant eyes, usually calm and calculating, were wide with a primal fear he rarely permitted himself. The sounds reaching him were an unbearable symphony of the wild's raw, brutal struggle, the guttural gasps of a large animal, the strained, desperate grunts, and cutting through it all, the heart-wrenching, frantic roars of a male lion. Jabari. Juma knew that sound. It wasn't the triumphant roar of a hunter or the territorial challenge of a rival. It was a roar laced with a profound, almost human desperation. It was a plea. He moved not with the deliberate stealth of a ranger stalking poachers, but with an urgent, clumsy stride, drawn by an invisible thread of empathy. Years of park protocol drilled into every fiber of his being screamed at him, non-intervention. Let nature take its course. Do not interfere with predators. Yet, the sound of Jabari's distress was a hammer blow against his resolve, shattering the ironclad rules. He broke into a small clearing, the low-key lighting of dusk casting long, menacing shadows. The scene before him was a tableau of horror. A massive African rock python, thick as a tree trunk, was coiled tightly around the struggling form of the lioness, Zola. Her powerful body, usually a picture of regal strength, was contorted, her breath coming in ragged, shallow bursts. Jabari, his dark-tipped mane bristling, was a whirlwind of impotent fury, batting at the python's immense body with frantic, desperate paws, his teeth snapping dangerously close to the serpentine coils, yet seemingly unable to inflict any real damage. The air thrummed with the raw energy of the struggle, a vortex of life and death. Juma felt a cold dread seep into his bones, a feeling far beyond the fear of the python's deadly embrace. This was Zola, a lioness he had tracked since she was a cub, a vital part of Jabari's pride. To watch her die like this, slowly suffocated, while Jabari roared his helplessness, it was unbearable. His hand instinctively went to the long metal snake hook strapped to his pack. This wasn't just a violation of protocol, it was a career-ending decision, an act of defiance against the very principles he'd sworn to uphold. But in that moment, staring at Jabari's wide, terrified eyes, Juma made his choice. Duty, protocol, career, all of it faded against the urgent, overwhelming imperative of compassion. With a heavy, determined breath, Juma crouched low, the snake hook gripped firmly in his gloved hands. He moved with the practiced caution of a man who understood deadly predators, his focus intense, his mind racing through possible scenarios. Every muscle in his body was coiled, ready to spring or to retreat. The desperate chaos ahead was a maelstrom, and he was stepping into its eye. As he drew closer, the last golden rays of sunlight cutting through the dusty air glinted off the python's scales. And that's when he saw it, an anomaly, not the usual dull, earthy browns and grays of an African rock python. There was an unusual, almost imperceptible metallic sheen, a faint, iridescent glimmer that caught the light in an unnatural way. It was subtle, easily missed in the dimming light and the chaos, but Juma's observant eyes, honed by decades in the bush, registered it instantly. A detail that prickled at the back of his neck, hinting at something far more sinister than a simple act of nature. Something wrong. His heart pounded, a frantic drum against his ribs. The metallic sheen, the sheer size of the python, Jabari's unprecedented, almost human plea. Juma pushed the unsettling thought aside. First, he had to act. He had to save Zola. He edged closer, the long hook extended, the full weight of his impossible decision pressing down on him, his own breath catching in his throat as the python's massive head, an unblinking reptilian mask of death, turned slowly towards him. The python's head, unblinking and ancient, swiveled, its dark eyes finding Juma. For a terrifying second, the world narrowed to the immense reptile, its metallic scales shimmering ominously in the dusk. Then, driven by an instinct beyond training, Juma lunged. The long metal hook, designed to maneuver smaller snakes, was barely adequate for this leviathan, but he drove its curved end beneath a thick coil near Zola's head, leveraging with all his might. The python retaliated with furious, unnatural strength. Its body, an impossibly dense knot of muscle, rippled violently. It wasn't just powerful, it felt different. The scales, when Juma's gloved hand brushed against them as he strained to pull, felt oddly cool, almost artificial, beneath the surface texture. The sheer force of its thrashing was beyond anything Juma had ever encountered from a snake of this size. It fought with an eerie resilience, a relentless, unyielding power that spoke of something more than primal instinct. But Juma was not alone. In a breathtaking display of interspecies cooperation, Jabari, instead of attacking Juma, mirrored his efforts. The lion's guttural roars softened to urgent commands. His powerful jaws, usually tearing at prey, now carefully gripped the python's body just below Juma's hook. As Juma strained to pull one coil away from Zola's constricted throat, Jabari simultaneously bit down and pulled, a synchronized tug of war against the serpentine death grip. It was a bizarre, deadly ballet, man and beast united by a common desperate goal. Zola, gasping, her body trembling, was still trapped. Her breath came in ragged, shallow bursts, each one a testament to the python's crushing embrace. Juma, sweat stinging his eyes, gritted his teeth, pushing the hook deeper, pulling, twisting. Jabari growled, a low, focused sound of immense effort, his paws batting at other coils, trying to distract the python. Finally, with a grunt that tore from Juma's chest and a furious, synchronized pull from both man and lion, the python's coils slackened just enough. Zola's chest heaved, a desperate gulp of air filling her lungs. The instant she was free, gasping and weak, collapsing onto the dusty earth, the dynamics of the clearing shifted. Jabari, the cooperative ally, vanished. In his place, a chilling avenger emerged. The lion turned on the python with a primal fury that made the blood run cold. Gone was the calculated teamwork. This was pure, unadulterated vengeance. His powerful jaws clamped down on the python's head with savage force, tearing and shaking the immense reptile. The metallic sheen on the scales seemed to flash in protest against the raw, animalistic assault. The air filled with the sounds of a struggle far more brutal than before, a cacophony of snarls and thrashing. Juma, reeling from the gravity of his protocol violation and the unprecedented interaction, stumbled back, watching the scene unfold. The adrenaline that had fueled him now drained, leaving him shaking. He had intervened, he had violated the sacred rule of non-intervention, risking his career, his livelihood for a lioness, and he had done it with a lion. The enormity of it settled over him like a suffocating shroud. He had witnessed something impossible, something that shattered every tenet of his long career in wildlife conservation. He retreated slowly, his heavy work boots dragging on the dust towards the familiar, comforting solidity of his vehicle. As he reached the door, he looked back. Jabari, having seemingly ripped the life out of the python, lifted his head. His magnificent dark-tipped mane was matted with dust. His eyes, usually blazing with aggression or hunger, were now fixed on Juma. It wasn't a growl nor a threat. It was a gaze, deep and unnerving, that held an undeniable current of acknowledgement, of profound gratitude. It was a look that transcended species, an almost knowing thank you that sent a shiver down Juma's spine, confirming that he had not just saved a lioness, but had stepped into something far stranger, far more significant than he could comprehend. He was being thanked by a lion. And that, more than anything, confirmed the unsettling, surreal reality of what had just transpired. The late morning sun beat down on the acacia clearing, a stark contrast to the oppressive tension hanging heavy in the air. Juma stood a few paces from his jeep, his dusty green uniform a testament to yesterday's impossible battle. Director Asha Makunga, her impeccably pressed khaki uniform, a jarring sight against the wild backdrop, radiated fury. Her sharp features were taut with barely contained anger, her initial pronouncements sharp, condemning Juma's flagrant disregard for protocol. Ranger Kasumba, your actions were an unforgivable breach of procedure. You jeopardized yourself, the animals, and the integrity of this park. Beside her, Dr. Imani Kalonzo, the park's esteemed veterinary and behavioral expert, usually a picture of serene scientific curiosity, now seemed an agitated mess of anticipation. His kind but serious eyes, wide with scientific awe, were fixed on the small, dusty video screen Juma had retrieved from his dashcam. The footage, raw and unedited, played out the impossible alliance. As the chaotic scene unfolded on the screen, Juma straining against the python with his hook, Jabari pulling in perfect synchronized tandem, Makunga's initial fury gave way to stunned disbelief. Her jaw slowly dropped, her authoritative posture stiffening not from anger, but from shock. The images were undeniable. Man and lion, working as one, a seamless, wordless communication that defied every known principle of animal behavior. Dr. Colonzo, meanwhile, was utterly captivated. He leaned closer to the screen, his breath hitching as Jabari's powerful jaws worked in unison with Juma's hook, their movements precise, almost choreographed. His muttered exclamations were barely audible. Impossible. Unprecedented. The coordination. His gaze then shifted from the screen to where Zola, miraculously recovering, now rested beside Jabari, and the rest of the pride remained unusually calm, accepting Juma's presence in a way that further shattered conventional understanding. He spoke of Jabari's final lingering glance at Juma, a look of profound gratitude, a detail he hadn't fully grasped until seeing it captured on film. It was the kind of scientific anomaly that could redefine entire fields of study. Juma, standing slightly apart, watched their reactions with a simmering resolve. He knew what he had done, and he knew it was right, despite the rules. But the director's reaction was not what he expected. The initial outrage was expected, but the way her face paled, the way her eyes darted away from the screen, almost with a flicker of fear, that was new. The footage concluded, leaving a silence that pressed down on the clearing. Makunga stood rigid for a long moment, then spun around, her expression hardening, all traces of disbelief replaced by a chilling resolve. This never happened, she declared, her voice low and cutting. Ranger Kasumba, you are suspended pending a full disciplinary review. All footage, all findings are to be immediately handed over to me. No copies are to be made. No discussions of this incident are to take place outside of this clearing. Dr. Colonzo, still processing the scientific marvel, started to protest. Asha, this is extraordinary. We have to analyze this, document this for science, for conservation. This changes everything we understand about interspecies communication, about lion intelligence. Makunga cut him off, her voice dangerously quiet. Imani, I understand your enthusiasm, but this is not up for discussion. This footage, these events, they pose a significant risk to the park's integrity, to its standing with our international partners. This will be handled internally, strictly internally. Her gaze, when it met Juma's, was not just dismissive, but carried an unspoken warning. He recognized the shift. It wasn't about a simple protocol violation anymore. There was a palpable external pressure weighing on Makunga, a force unseen but undeniably present. The stringent cover-up, the restriction of all access, the almost frantic insistence on secrecy, it all pointed to something far beyond simple park politics or reputation management. Juma accepted his suspension and eventual reassignment to a remote, inconsequential post without argument. But as he packed his meager belongings, the metallic sheen of the python's scales, the impossible alliance with Jabari, and the chilling urgency of Makunga's cover-up spun in his mind. He sensed a deeper, unspoken reason for the secrecy, a conspiracy far beyond the boundaries of the Serengeti, one that had just dragged him into its shadowed depths. He had saved a lion, but he had also stumbled upon a truth someone desperately wanted buried. And now he was a part of it. Weeks bled into a month. Juma, officially reassigned to a remote, seldom patrolled sector of the park, found himself a pariah, ostracized by colleagues who whispered about his irrational behavior. Yet one thing remained consistent, defying all logic: Jabari's behavior towards him. It had moved beyond the mere tolerance Juma had observed in some habituated animals. Now it was a profound acknowledgement, almost a bond. Whenever their paths crossed, the lion would offer a low rumble, a direct gaze that held no threat, only a strange, compelling recognition. Then came the news that ripped through Juma's forced solitude. Zola, the lioness he'd saved, was limping badly. A new injury, a fresh wave of dread washed over him. He found her with the pride, favoring her left foreleg, a raw gash visible beneath her fur. It wasn't a natural injury, no claw marks, no telltale signs of a struggle with another predator. This looked human. As Juma knelt, cautiously examining Zola from a respectful distance, Jabari emerged from the tall grass, not with a growl of warning, but with a deliberate purpose. In his powerful jaws, he held a freshly killed gazelle, its limp form a stark contrast to the lion's majestic power. With an astonishing act of reciprocal altruism, Jabari laid the gazelle at Juma's feet. It was a gift, undeniable and deeply unsettling. A lion, presenting a kill to a human. But it wasn't just a gift. Jabari nudged the gazelle with his nose, then turned his magnificent head, looking at Juma, then pointedly towards a specific direction, a secluded, overgrown section near a rocky outcrop. His posture, his intense gaze, conveyed a silent, urgent warning, a command that Juma, against all scientific understanding, knew he had to follow. With a grim sense of foreboding, Juma left the gazelle and followed Jabari. The lion led him through dense thickets, his immense body moving with a silent grace, until they reached a small, hidden clearing. The air here felt different, heavy, stagnant. The usual vibrant scents of the savannah were muted by something acrid, metallic. Jabari stopped abruptly, his eyes fixed on a patch of tall grass near a cluster of jagged rocks. Juma crouched low, his gaze following the lions. Half hidden amongst the dry stalks, a crude, illegally set wire snare glinted dully. It was expertly placed, designed to catch large game, and it was still tight, freshly sprung. Zola's injury. The pieces clicked into place with a chilling certainty, but the snare was only part of the horror. Nearby, nestled amongst the rocks, was a small, stagnant pool of water. It shimmers with an unnatural, oily sheen, a rainbow slick marring its surface. Juma, his heart pounding, dipped a gloved finger into the lukewarm liquid. It felt viscous, unnatural. He pulled out a small, portable bioscanner from his utility belt, a tool usually reserved for detecting specific animal diseases or traces of poaching drugs. The device whirred, then beeped frantically, its display flashing a series of unfamiliar readings, biomarkers indicative of heavy industrial runoff, toxic compounds he recognized from environmental reports of illegal dumping. The grim reality slammed into him. This wasn't just a rogue poacher or a simple natural accident. The park's cover-up, Mukunga's frantic secrecy, it extended to something far more insidious, a human-related danger threatening the entire ecosystem. The metallic sheen on the python, its unnatural strength, Zola's injury from a snare, followed by Jabari's leading him to this contaminated water source. It was all connected. This was not just about saving individual animals. It was about the slow, agonizing poisoning of an entire wilderness. The serene beauty of the Serengeti was being defiled, corrupted by something unseen, yet undeniably present. The implication was terrifying. Someone was deliberately hiding this, allowing this ecological catastrophe to unfold. And now, Juma had irrefutable proof, thanks to a lion who had chosen him as his confidant. The weight of this new, horrifying knowledge pressed down on him, confirming his deepest suspicions that he was now caught in a conspiracy far larger and more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. He had been warned, not by a human, but by the very wilderness he was sworn to protect, a warning etched in toxic water and a lion's silent plea. Hold on to your seats, because the plot thickens even further in this nail-biting chapter. Juma's discovery of the contaminated water was just the tip of the iceberg, and what he uncovers next isn't just a threat to the animals, but a life-threatening danger to himself. Don't forget to like this video, share it with fellow truth seekers, and subscribe so you don't miss how this conspiracy unravels. Juma's remote ranger outpost, usually a sanctuary of solitude, had become a war room. Late into the night, by the flickering, unsteady glow of a single lantern, he meticulously documented the escalating human-made threats. His crude, hand-drawn map of the park, spread across his battered desk, was becoming an intricate web of red markers. More snares discovered, not just isolated traps, but clusters indicating systematic, organized activity, expanding areas of contaminated water, shimmering with that insidious, oily sheen, spreading like a disease through vital watering holes. And, worst of all, the bioscanner readings, painstakingly logged, now showed alarming patterns of large-scale industrial pollution, far beyond anything a small illicit operation could produce. Heavy metals, complex organic compounds, the fingerprints of a massive industrial footprint, silently suffocating the Serengeti. He knew he couldn't carry this burden alone. He trusted Dr. Imani Kalonzo, the veteran scientist initially terrified by Juma's whispered revelations, the illicit photos, and the chilling data, had been forced to confront the impossible. Imani, a man of logic and reason, had seen the dashcam footage, had witnessed Jabari's impossible gratitude. Now, faced with Juma's undeniable evidence of ecological poisoning, his scientific mind, despite the fear, began to connect the dots. Illegal mining, Imani murmured, his voice hushed as he hunched over Juma's map, his finger tracing the park's periphery. There have been whispers, Juma, rumors of prospecting deep in the buffer zones near the protected areas, but nothing substantial, nothing like this. His face, etched with a mix of fear and growing conviction, looked pale in the lantern light. The sheer scale of this pollution. It's a systematic operation, not just a few desperate poachers. Meanwhile, Director Makunga's warnings to Juma became increasingly dire. Her calls, rare and hushed, bypassed official channels, arriving on Juma's private line. "Ranger Kasumba, you are treading where you do not belong," she'd hissed, her voice tight with an unfamiliar urgency. "Drop this. Focus on your new assignment. There are forces at play, Juma, powerful forces that you cannot begin to comprehend. They will not tolerate interference." Her words were thinly veiled threats, chilling in their implication, hinting at an influence that reached far beyond the confines of the park, even beyond government oversight. She sounded less like his superior and more like a terrified conspirator. The weight of their discovery pressed down on Juma and Imani, isolating them further. The vastness of the Serengeti, once a comfort, now felt like an exposed stage for a deadly secret. He knew he needed more than just biomarkers. He needed a direct link, a name. It was during a solitary patrol deep within a section of the park, supposedly untouched, that Juma found it. A hidden dump site tucked away in a ravine, carelessly covered. Among the discarded plastic sheeting and broken pipes, he saw it, a thick, chemical-resistant barrel, partially buried, its distinctive corporate logo still visible beneath layers of grime. Urafiki Resources, Inc. The name hit him like a physical blow. Urafiki Resources, a major, seemingly legitimate corporation with international ties, prominent mining interests, and a carefully cultivated image of corporate social responsibility. They were even donors to some of the park's conservation initiatives, a bitter irony that twisted Juma's gut. He photographed it, his hands shaking slightly, the lens capturing the stark reality of the betrayal. This wasn't just illegal poaching or rogue dumping. This was a vast, dangerous conspiracy. The metallic sheen on the python, its unnatural resilience, the sophisticated snares, the industrial-grade pollution systematically spreading through the park, Makunga's terrified warnings, the lion's warning, it all coalesced into a horrifying picture. A legitimate corporation operating a covert illegal mining operation, poisoning the land and its creatures, with protection reaching high into the government and, most disturbingly, possibly even the park's own management. Juma had been a ranger his whole life protecting this land, but now he realized the true enemy was not just outside the gates, but festering within, insidious and pervasive. He was up against a giant, and he was completely alone. Juma stood at the precipice of an impossible choice. He had seen the evidence, undeniable and damning. Urafiki Resources, Inc., a corporate behemoth, was systematically poisoning the Serengeti, driven by greed, shielded by corruption. His own park director, Makunga, was either complicit or terrified into submission. The sheer scale of the conspiracy, the peril to the entire ecosystem, left him no alternative. He knew the risks. His life, already isolated, would be irrevocably shattered, perhaps even ended. But the memory of Zola's gasping breaths, Jabari's desperate plea, and the oily sheen on the water burned too brightly to ignore. He carefully compiled his dossier, the original dashcam footage, a silent testament to an impossible alliance. His meticulous documentation of the contaminated water sources, the biomarkers, the hidden snares, and the damning photographs of Urafiki Resources, Inc. packaging. With trembling hands, he uploaded it all to a secure server, contacting an investigative journalist known for her unwavering pursuit of truth, whispering just enough to pique her interest without exposing himself prematurely. The leak was made, the die was cast. The response was swift, brutal, and utterly predictable. The tranquil dawn, often a time of peace in the Serengeti, became a stage for menace. Juma found himself cornered deep within the scarred, polluted territory on the edge of the park, where skeletal trees stood as stark monuments to environmental destruction. Ahead of him, a group of menacing, well-dressed corporate enforcers, their faces grim and threatening, advanced with a predatory calm. These weren't poachers, these were professionals, hired muscle. Behind them, Director Asha Makunga stood, her pristine khaki uniform now disheveled, her authoritative posture slumped, her expression a mix of regret and profound, paralyzing fear. Juma, she rasped, her voice thin. You shouldn't have done this. You don't understand what you're up against. Juma clutched a data drive, the digital embodiment of his defiance, a small, cold comfort in his hand. His uniform was torn, his face weathered by the recent trials, but his sharp, observant eyes now blazed with defiant determination. I understand enough, Asha, he retorted, his voice unwavering. I understand that you let them poison our home. The lead enforcer, a burly man with eyes as cold as the metallic light filtering through the overcast sky, stepped forward. Hand over the drive, Ranger, and this can all go away. Juma shook his head, a fierce resolve hardening his jaw. It's already out. A tense silence stretched, thick with impending violence. Then a low rumble vibrated through the ground, a sound that made the enforcers pause, their grim faces flickering with unease. From the desolate, scarred landscape behind Juma, like specters emerging from the poisoned earth, appeared Jabari and the Makali Pride. They didn't charge, didn't roar in aggression. Instead, they moved with a silent, deliberate grace, subtly positioning themselves not in an attack formation, but as an unspoken barrier. Their powerful forms formed an unmoving, watchful line, their eyes, intelligent and ancient, fixed not on Juma, but on the human confrontation unfolding before them. Jabari, his dark-tipped mane ruffled by the morning breeze, settled himself just behind Juma, his gaze unwavering, a silent, powerful protection. It was an impossible tableau, a human ranger protected by the very lions he was sworn to protect against the humans who sought to silence him. The enforcers, visibly rattled, exchanged nervous glances. They were prepared for a man, not for a phalanx of the Serengeti's apex predators, acting as sentient guardians. The lion's watchful presence was a powerful, intelligent shield, a testament to an interspecies bond that transcended all logic. The standoff stretched, the silence punctuated only by the distant hum of industrial machinery from beyond the horizon, a constant reminder of the unseen enemy. The enforcers, outmaneuvered not by force but by an incomprehensible alliance, eventually retreated, their threats hollowed by the pride's unyielding gaze. They understood Juma was protected not by a gun, but by the very soul of the Serengeti. Juma watched them go, then turned, meeting Jabari's steady gaze. There was a flicker of something profound in the lion's eyes, an ancient wisdom, a shared understanding. The leak ignited a firestorm. The journalist's expose, backed by Juma's irrefutable evidence, triggered global outrage. Investigations were launched, arrests were made, and Urafiki Resources Inc. faced international condemnation. The ensuing reckoning forced a reevaluation of environmental ethics, corporate accountability, and most powerfully forever changed how humanity viewed wildlife and its own profound responsibilities to the natural world. Juma had saved the Serengeti, not just from a python, but from the insidious poison of human greed, guided by the wisdom of a lion. The desperate roars that first echoed across the Serengeti plains, a primal cry for help from Jabari, set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything Juma Kasumba knew about predator dynamics and park intervention protocols. That agonizing decision to intervene, to save the lioness Zola from the crushing embrace of a massive python, was only the beginning. What Juma discovered next, the unbelievable alliance with a lion, the shocking evidence of widespread pollution, and the insidious reach of a powerful corporate conspiracy, tore through the fabric of his world, forcing him to choose between a comfortable silence and a dangerous truth. The sight of Jabari and the Makali Pride, forming an unspoken barrier against human enforcers in that desolate, polluted clearing, wasn't just miraculous. It was a profound testament to an interspecies bond forged in the crucible of shared struggle. Juma's courageous leak, empowered by the very animals he protected, ignited a global reckoning. The Serengeti, once a silent victim, became a symbol of defiance, forever changing how humanity viewed its wild inhabitants and its own responsibilities. The unbelievable was not just a lion's gratitude, but the realization that the wild itself could become an ally, teaching us truths we desperately needed to hear. End. Word 206.